ShaDon, start with your position. On the depth chart in the press guide, you got a lot of oars there. So how is the battle, I guess, 5 competing? How's that going?
Yeah, it's a great problem to have. For the first time since I've been here, I feel like we have more than 2 guys that you just really feel good about running out there on the field. I think all 5 of those guys, the 3 returners, which is Andrew Wilson-Lamp, who's a junior or a redshirt sophomore now, has made an unbelievable jump just with physicality and gained some weight to help him play a lot stronger at this level, and he came on a little bit down the stretch for us. Obviously, Malachi Ruffin, who I call Steady Eddie, who's been here for 6 years, and he knows every position, and he's doing a great job in the leadership role. I feel very comfortable putting him out there. And the guy that's probably made the biggest jump in the room is Jacoby Spells. Jacoby last year, he was a little trial by fire, and he was 177 pounds. He probably was out there before he should have been, but because of injuries, if you put a freshman out there in the Big 12, it's difficult, no matter what sport you're playing. And he's really changed his body. He's up to 187 pounds now. He's one of the strongest. He's over a 330-pound bench press guy. For a freshman that probably was benching 225 last year. So that's a huge testament to Mike Joe and his crew downstairs. But those 3 guys have made really strong jumps. And then obviously bringing in 2 transfer guys with Montre Miller, who was here early on in the spring, who's starting to get a good grasp of what we're doing. He's a guy that I feel very comfortable having out there at any point. And then, thank you, sir. Then the guy that came in just this summer who's done an unbelievable job is Beanie Bishop. Just from a leadership standpoint, he's an alpha. He's the alpha in the room. He's already taken on the leadership role in the room. For only being here 2 months, you wouldn't think that would be the case. But his personality is a leadership alpha personality. He's done a great job as well. He really flashed today as well. So.
What's going to be the decision making for you? Is it going to be the playmakers, the guys that can make the plays, or the guys that can avoid the mistakes or be consistent? Where does that rank in your?
Yeah, I think there's a balance of both. I think you want guys out there that are not going to bust and what I call give up layups. But you also want guys out there that can make plays. So if you can get a happy balance in there, because obviously I always tell the guys if you grade out 100% but you never make any plays, you're going to do a great job standing over there with me coaching, because I need guys out there that's going to make plays. And so we try to if guys are a MA guy, they're not going to be on the grass. And I feel good because I got 5 guys that I can roll out there, and I feel really good about any of those guys. Like I finished today, Jacoby Spells didn't start out today with the ones, but he finished the last 2 minutes with the ones and made a key play in a 2-minute scenario. So I feel comfortable playing all 5 of those guys at corner.
Is it maybe you can reap the rewards of what you went through last year, playing all those guys that maybe weren't ready, that you had to because of the numbers you were presented with?
Yes, definitely. I think, that playing time that those guys got that they probably were not ready for has really helped them make that jump a little bit faster as they move into year 2, as well as guys like Malachi Ruffin, who had been here for 4 or 5 years but hadn't really been a contributor on defense as much as he had in the special teams. So I feel like those guys have made that jump just because of experience and also because they've gotten stronger. That's one of the key things, I talk with Coach Brown a lot about is down the field, it's kind of like if you watch basketball, you watch a freshman basketball player trying to box out versus a senior, it's different. Well, it's the same thing on a go ball down the field, and they're jockeying for position, and you got a 170-pound freshman gets knocked over by a 220-pound senior. It's a little different ball game. Now I feel like we're stronger down the field. We can handle those 50-50 matchups.
Play inside and outside?
I think Beanie Bishop is probably more of a guy that can combo and play inside at nickel and play outside. We're working him at both of those. Malachi Ruffin can go back and play deep safety as well as corner. I'm cross-training a couple of those guys, but not all of them this year just because we've got enough depth now. I like cross-training, but I feel like because we've got depth at corner and safety that I don't have to cross-train as much. I can cross-train more for quality more than just trying to create depth.
Getting back to the point you made about stronger, is there any value to having guys who think they're stronger than maybe they actually are? Do you buy into that a little bit, psychology? You know?
Well, if you and I go to Planet Fitness and lay under 300 pounds on the bench press, we may think we can lift it, but eventually we're going to have to lift it. Yeah. So I think confidence, helps, but eventually you have to go out and make those plays. And it's usually not the first play when I'm fresh, but now it's the second, third, fourth time that I have to make those plays when I'm tired. That strength really shows up. And I think the maturity and the strength that we've gained over the offseason is going to help some of those guys be better, especially, down the field.
How big was it, like you're saying with Beanie, how big was it to get a leader in that room, somebody to really be in charge of the group?
It was imperative that we found a guy that could lead and had an alpha male mentality. I didn't know that coming in, that Beanie would be this quick. I knew he had those characteristic traits about him, but he came in and, he's a guy that is going to hold people accountable, but he's going to be accountable as well. If he makes a mistake, he's going to own up to it and take ownership. Something as simple as, if Coach Joe says run through the line off the field and the guy is a step before the line, he's going to call him out. And we've not always had that at times because as young people in today's society, everybody wants to be everybody's friend. It's very difficult to correct somebody else that's your buddy because you don't want to feel like that you're demeaning them or making them look bad in front of others. And young people just struggle with that. And he does it. He will hold people accountable. And again, he holds himself accountable, and he will take ownership for any mistakes, in which I really love. And he's been a pleasant surprise to have.
How does somebody toe that line between being the brand new guy in the room and also not being hesitant to hold guys accountable or maybe be unlikable?
Well, I think the first piece that you have to have is you have to have consistency. When you walk in the room, you have to have a aura about you, but you have to have consistency. And if you're consistent every single day, doing it the right way and doing it to the best of your capabilities, and other guys see that, then it's a lot easier to lead. But if you're what I call a real good, feel-good guy, you wake up in the morning, you got some good sleep, and all of a sudden you're ready to go and you're going hard, and then the next day you stayed up too late and now you're dragging. You can't be a leader if you're not consistent. And, I tell the guys all the time, leadership's not fun sometimes. No matter what profession you're in, leadership's not fun because that means you're going to have to call out and correct, but you're also going to have to lead from the front as well. And so he's done that, and coming in here and, been here for, I guess, 2 months now. He's been the same every day.
How's the development of Andrew Wilson-Lamp going? Long, but I know he was really skinny. Still seems skinny, but where is he now?
Yeah, Andrew came in, I think, my first year here. He was probably about, he's gonna cry when he hears this, but he was probably 158 pounds, 6'1". He was a beanpole. And he's now in the 177, 178 range. For him, it doesn't look like a whole lot. For you and I, it'd be a whole lot, right? Gained 20 pounds. But he's done a really good job. He's gotten stronger. He's more confident because he is stronger. He always could run. He can really run, and he can run for days. He's one of those guys that does not get tired. And he's made a huge jump. I think playing him a little bit down the stretch last year gave him some confidence going into this offseason to now come in with some confidence that I can play at this level. And he also utilized that few games that he got to play to see where I need to get better and continue to add weight, continue to get stronger throughout the offseason. He's done a good job of that, and he's playing at a high level.
I know takeaways last year was a direct correlation of the inexperience that you had, all those guys. What's your message to them this year? How do you go about talking to them about we have to make more plays, we have to create more turnovers and opportunities for the offense?
Yeah, I make sure we're aware of last year, but I don't dwell on it because you got a new group of guys. Some guys were not here last year, so we talk about it and explain the why we're doing the things that we're doing now as far as the adjustments we've made to what we're doing. But it's I don't harp on what we did as much last year other than, hey guys, this was an issue last year. This is why we're doing it this way to get it fixed. And I think more than anything is alignment, getting aligned, playing harder. and then being able to execute. And I think that's where we've made strides throughout the offseason as a defensive staff. That's really all we've done is focused on alignment and effort across the board and physicality. We've done more drills to where we're full speed and being more physical, and I promise you it'll show up.
So the number one thing is getting in place to get the turnover, and then the next thing is executing and actually physically doing it.
Yes, if you don't get in position, you're probably not going to make the play because you're always running to where your responsibility is. A lot of that is communication. A lot of that is knowing your job and feeling comfortable with everybody around you as well, that you don't have to overcompensate for somebody maybe they don't know their job as well. I feel like the puzzle pieces are fitting all together. You're 1/11th of the defense. You can go out and do it because you know the guy next to you knows exactly what he's doing as well.
Jumping back to Beanie and being an alpha, he was productive throughout his time at Western Kentucky, but especially that last month and a half, it seemed like every time he was out there, he was making a game-changing play. How much can a stretch of football like that change the trajectory of a guy's career?
Well, making plays is sometimes contagious. I think when you start to make a few plays, it gives you confidence, and a lot of times it's kind of like a guy in basketball. You say, man, he's on fire. It's very similar. You get that confidence to go make plays, and you don't play with a caution. You play with a reckless abandon, and that allows you to make more plays. I think, Beanie transferred from Western Kentucky to Minnesota. He had a different role in their scheme. And then him transferring here, he's got multiple roles in this scheme. And so he's allowed to play free. And I know he's going to make some mistakes because it's a new defense, but he's the kind of guy that he can make a mistake because he takes ownership and shake it off and move on to the next play, which is positive.
Ultimately, I know this is way, way too early, but do you envision sticking with two guys at corner and running them as long as they can go, or do you want to rotate maybe all five?
Yeah, we've got depth. We're going to play all five. If guys have shown the ability to play at this level in this league, we're going to play all five. And I feel like they've earned that. I feel like you can't create depth if you don't play them, especially early. And I think last year, we had the injuries really early, 12 plays into the year, to our best player back there, which really caused a little bit of a panic. And I think now we have enough depth and we've built enough depth that we could put any of those five out there at corner and feel good about those guys.
Back to his maybe 5 years ago, you couldn't do that with the tempo and all the different things that were in this league. But now the way the league has changed a little bit, scheme-wise, you could probably get away with that.
Yeah,
if you had to.
Yeah, in this league, it's becoming more of a personnel-driven league. And when I say personnel, it's, teams will play with one back and one tight end, and then they will change to one back and two tight ends, and then they'll go to no tight ends. And so because of the changes in personnel, when the offense subs, we can sub. So we're able to play different packages because of that. But also, it's not as up-tempo every game like it's been in the past in this league. Teams will slow down because teams are going to try to run the football some, especially if they get a lead. They're going to try to run the football some, so you can play more guys because of that. And I think you need to play more to get ready for guys that are going to tempo every snap, like a Texas Tech is going to try to run 100 snaps. And if you're playing two guys at corner and two guys at safety the whole game, by the second half, it's tough sledding.
After those top five guys, who are some of the younger guys that are standing out to you?
Yeah, one pleasant surprise has been Jordan Jackson. Jordan Jackson is a guy that played running back in high school, and Jordan Jackson was a pure projection. So I had him in camp. I worked him out in camp, and I always knew he could run. He was a consistent 4.5, 40 guy. 3 times in a row he ran under 4.6 in the 4.5 range, so I knew he could run. And then just getting him here, he was also a late guy. He came in June, and he's done a really good job picking it up. He can run. He's picked up the terminology of just playing defense because he played offense. He was a starting running back for the last 2 years at Fairfield Central there in Ohio, so he didn't play a lot of defense. And he's been a pleasant surprise with just being able to cover and how he moves in space. He's going to be a guy that I think can help us on special teams this year. I don't know if he'll be ready for prime time on defense early on, but I think as the year goes, he'll get some snaps under his belt on special teams and be able to contribute for us this year.
ShaDon, go back to the second line. You said about if you grade out 100%, you're probably not going to be a very good player. That kind of seems funny, but I guess it makes sense to guys. But they're so conditioned to not make mistakes because the spotlight is so bright at that position. But you kind of have to talk them into making mistakes, I guess, so to speak. Do they get that, or does that take some proof in film?
Well, I think it takes some film. And what I mean by if they grade out 100%, they didn't play with it, that's not what I mean. If you grade out 100%, but you never take risks to go make plays, then now you're not playing aggressive. You're playing passive. And so the aggressive nature that we want to play with, that every ball that's thrown is our ball, there's going to be times when you don't make the play. The offense has scholarship players too. So, if you go out there and never go attack the ball and never go try to make those plays, then you're trying to play safe, then you're probably not ever going to be a playmaker. But if there's a guy who, 7 out of 10 times he does it right and 3 times he has a minus because he tried to go attack the ball, I'm okay with that. Because I know that if he makes those plays, 1 out of those 3, he's changed the game for our entire team. And we all know what happens when there's a turnover. The entire sideline erupts. The stadium is excited. That creates momentum, and that's what we need to help our offense.
Is it just as simple as aggressiveness that you're bringing up there in terms of grading the team on the ability to create more turnovers? Because that was an emphasis toward the end of last year, this year now. But aside from actually getting a turnover, how do you evaluate that to feel you're closer?
Well, the more confidence that you have, the more aggressive you will be because you know your job, you know what to do, you know where to go. If you attack the ball, whether you're making a tackle as a linebacker or a safety, or you're attacking the ball in the area outside as a corner, to me it's all the same. The aggressiveness comes from being confident in what you're doing, all right, knowing your job so that you can go make those plays. And through film study, we watch guys on film, and you can see real clearly a guy that plays on his heels and a guy that's playing with his pads forward. A guy with his pads forward, he's going to attack. A guy that's on his heels, he's passive. And so those guys are not going to make tackles. They're not going to make plays on the ball. And that's not what we're hunting right now. We're hunting guys that are going to go attack. That nothing to lose mentality. Go get it. Don't set back on your heels, and really take the fight to the offense as opposed to receiving it.
When you're grading, is everything equal? Or are things more valuable than others?
I think really everything's equal from a alignment standpoint, but from a production standpoint, interception is a lot more production point than making a tackle. But if I make a tackle for a loss, we bring a blitz with a DB coming on a blitz, and he makes a tackle for a loss. Well, that's more valuable than a tackle after they caught the ball for 12 yards down the field. We do chart something that we do here now is we chart strip attempts and hands-on balls, and I stole that years ago from Rick Pitino. I'm a Kentucky guy, so Rick Pitino, when he was a basketball coach at the University of Kentucky, used to chart hands-on balls, the back tips and all those things. We do the same thing. So guys that have strip attempts on a ball carrier, the guy may broke a run, but he may be 40 yards downfield. We should be sprinting, and that's an opportunity to make one of those game-changing plays from behind. And those are morale killers for an offensive player, but they're great boosts for a defensive player. So we practice that, and we chart it, and we show the kids every day who did that. And the more you see the guys that have the attempts are usually the guys that have the turnovers caused. And so that's what we talk about. The ball is money. You got to make plays on the ball to win games. Obviously, to be all conference, to be all American, to get drafted, you need to make plays on the ball. And so we talk about the ball is money. Every time you make a play on the ball, these guys sitting in these seats in here right now are going to write about you. If you don't make plays on the ball, they're not going to write about you. And so that's the key to if you're making those plays, we're probably going to win games.
What do you think of Malachi and how he's developed over,
6
longer
years?
than you have been here?
Yeah, Malachi is a guy that unbelievable story. No stars. Shame on Keenan. Didn't rate him Nobody recruited him, came to West Virginia because he wanted to be a Mountaineer. Came out for the school tryout. When school started, he came out and ran, and the previous staff brought him onto the team. He was a walk-on player, obviously, was on the scout team for 2 years, didn't play a lot at all. I came in 21, and he did an unbelievable job, and I basically explained to him his only opportunity was special teams because he is fast. He's a 4-4 guy. He can really run, and his opportunity was going to be on special teams, and he did a great job, earned a scholarship because of special teams. And then last year, being a utility player, he was thrown into a ball game against Baylor, had not had a rep at corner for probably 3 weeks. And we had 2 injuries and had a targeting, and we were down to our 4th or 5th guy, and we were thin as nickel soup as far as who we had. And so I go over and say, hey, Malachi, you got to go, man. And he didn't bat an eye. He was kind of blinking like, at safety? I said, no, bro, you got to go at corner. And he goes out there and makes a couple plays in that Baylor game and saves a touchdown on a big post ball down on the hospital end. It was a huge play, and that kind of ignited him, and he ended up playing pretty consistent for us. At times throughout the year, had a couple games where he didn't play as well. But you're talking about a guy who's been here for 5 years who had never really played on defense at all. And so now coming back as a 6-year player, he's really confident. He knows his job. He plays really hard. He can play multiple positions even without practice. He can play on all 4 special teams. He's one of those guys that you probably don't write a lot of articles about, and you're probably not going to get a lot of clicks with his name. But as a coach, you're always looking for him because you know that if there's a hole, he can fill it. He's kind of like the you see that commercial Flex Seal. He can fix stuff. And so that's why I love Malachi. I'm just proud of him. He's graduated. He's working on his master's. Great story.
You explained the mistake at Oklahoma State. We talked to him before. Can you give us your PG version of what you said to him, then how he bounced back later in that game?
I told him I love him. That's what I told him in a different way. But I was very upset with Malachi. He did a great job of coming back after that. As you guys who were at the game or saw the game, he made that play, which made the not top 10. But then he went down in the last drive of the game. They threw the ball at him 3 straight times, and he made 3 straight plays. And if he don't make them, we don't win because we're only up 5. And, that's a big moment for a kid to go from being in the lowest of low to being in the highest of highs. And I think, that's who he is. When I say steady Eddie, I'm talking about demeanor, poise, all those things. He does not get too high and he doesn't get too low, and that's why he was able to come back and battle and make those plays down the stretch for us to beat Oklahoma State for the first time in who knows how long.
That's probably the perfect example of what it takes to play quarterback, right?
Yeah, short memory. You got to have short memory. It's kind of you usually don't get redos, but when the ball comes your way, you gotta go compete. If you don't make the play, you got to go right back the next snap because they're coming back at you. And if you make that play, the next one, then they won't come back to you as often. But it's a short memory playing defensive back, and you're gonna make some, you're gonna miss some, but you got to keep playing. And if you keep playing and keep having confidence in yourself, you have a chance to make more plays. But it's a hard position. It's kind of like O-line. DB and O-line is very similar. Four guys can do their job. One guy doesn't. It's a sack on the O-line, right? DB, you can have 3 guys doing their job, and one guy falls down or whatever it may be, and you give up a touchdown, and you guys are going to write an article that says the secondary sucks, and one guy slipped and fell, and all the other 3 guys were great. It's no different on the offensive line, right? We all got to work in unison and work together, and there's going to be good plays and bad plays. You just got to have more good than bad.
I was going to ask what Keyshawn can do for you, but it seems like he's doing a bunch of different things. Like, what can't you do back there? Right?
Yeah, Keyshawn Cobb is a guy that can play multiple positions as well. Keyshawn's he was a nickel nickel spear kind of guy when he was at Buffalo, and then we brought him in. We knew he could play down in the apex, but we didn't know if he could play deep safety at all. He's been really a pleasant surprise of being able to play the ball in the deep part of the field. You wouldn't think that. He's a shorter, stocky guy. He's a 5'10", probably 208 to 210 guy, but he can really play the ball. He's got good ball skills. He's learning our scheme, and we can play him at multiple positions right now, and he's been a great addition because he can do that, and he's a physical guy. Like when he strikes, I mean, you hear it on the sideline. He's going to be a great addition as well. He gives us depth to play nickel as well as play deep safety.
Wilson just a cat right now because he got here later. Maybe he can grow into something else.
Yeah, Ant is playing free safety right now. He's playing free, and he's a dude. Ant is a guy that had over 100 tackles at Georgia Southern, led them in tackles last year, which is probably not a good thing if your safety leads your team in tackles. But he is a physical joker, and when he pulls his pen, he goes. And he's done a great job. He's blended in well. You guys will get a chance to be around him. He's really serious, so don't take that personal. He's locked in. There's not a lot of smiles. Like he's a focused dude, and that's been good. That's been good for our room because he's raised the level of play of people around him. I'm just really proud of the transfers we brought in. We do a really long vetting process, sometimes too long for my liking with Coach Brown at times, but he's really diligent in who we bring into the fold because we don't want people to destroy the culture that we have set, and I think our culture is much, much better, and we've kind of said that over the last couple of years, but it's taken another step this year, I promise you. And we've brought guys in that have blended well, and we've brought guys in that have enhanced the culture pretty quickly with just their focus and their maturity. Yeah, I think we've hit, especially with the secondary, I think we've hit on all of those guys. Those three that we brought in, I think we hit on all three because they can do multiple things. They're all physical guys, and they all can play the ball in the air. But they all are workers, and they are guys that have blended in really well and kind of learned the way we do things and the roles that they've been given early on. For example, I've told Beanie Bishop he's a guy that has to be a leader. He's an alpha male personality. He has taken and ran with that. Anthony Wilson is more of a cerebral guy who's a really focused, laser-focused guy. Well, that's a characteristic that you can pass on to a younger player to come in and watch film. And here's an example. I leave out of the staff room at 10:30 the other night, and I walk down the hall, and Anthony Wilson's in the safety room watching film at 10 o'clock at night. Now, he's not required to be here. I promise you. There's all these rules, right? And I'm like, what in the world is he doing in there? He kind of scared me. But that's him. And he's not going to say anything. He's watching the film, and he's trying to get ahead on the installs because he knows things are coming. He wanted to watch the film from the spring to see what he's supposed to do on each one of those calls. And so that's an area where now you see the freshmen you look up at 6 o'clock in the afternoon after dinner, you see three freshmen and Anthony Wilson. We're not telling them to do that, but we've brought in the right type of people, and now guys gravitate toward them.
You mentioned that evaluation process. Everyone probably just thinks it's, you go out and find guys. How hard is that from your perspective? And obviously there's a lot more to it, as you mentioned, just outside of just playing on the field.
Yeah, well, there's a system that everybody uses now. It's called PFF. It either promotes you or exposes you, all right, for the good or the better, because it has every play you ever played in. And it's an NFL system. The NFL uses it. That's why they scout guys from the NFL level. So if a guy played as a freshman on the gunner on the punt team as a true freshman, but he's a senior, that rep is going to be there. And so we go out and we watch those guys that go into the portal. We watch them and we say, okay, does his skill set fit our needs? And then once we look at that and say, yes, now what's the character piece? Now we make calls to maybe there's somebody on that staff that we know. Maybe it's a strength coach. Maybe it's an academic person, somebody that knows that kid. And then we go back as far as to, all right, what area did he play high school football? Okay, Anthony Wilson, he's from South Carolina. Well, I spent 5 years at Wofford College and off season with the Panthers, so the Carolinas I know. So I can make phone calls to the Carolinas, the people that I know that are not at Georgia Southern, and find out about this young man. Same thing with Montre Miller. What about this guy? How is he off the field? Does he love football? And get all those things, and there's guys that we pass on, and there's guys we say, okay, he checks the boxes. Let's bring him in on a visit. We bring him in on a visit, and we're still vetting that person and his family to see if they're going to be a fit for what we need them for as their role. But are they going to come in and be a good person to put in our locker room? And so that's all a piece of it. And we've had guys that we brought in on visits, and we said, hey, we appreciate your time, but we went on a date, but we're not going to get married. You know, we're not going to do it. And it's always, you know, it's small things. And that's the hardest thing as a coach and a recruiter, to take the things that you see, the subtle hints, and go, we can't take that guy. Because a lot of times it's kind of like dating, right? You know, she looks real pretty, and you go, man, she can't cook very well. And then you wait till you get married and say, man, she don't cook very well. Well, it's too late. Well, that's kind of how I look at it. You got to make sure that you say and see those things, and you're honest with yourself and say, no, that guy's not good for us. And sometimes that's hard, because what are you trying to do? You're trying to fill your roster. But if you fill it with the wrong people, and we've all made mistakes doing that, you fill it with the wrong people, then everything you built can be torn down immediately by one person, especially if that young man's an alpha. If he's an alpha, he can get people to gravitate toward him, and it's either going to be positive or negative. And we want to bring in the guys that's going to enhance our culture.
Anything else?
Yeah, hopefully all your wives can cook. Thank you.